Amen. Well, it's the new year. New year, new you. Wouldn't that be nice? Made any resolutions yet?
Do not have any.
To not make any resolutions? That's good. That's good. Learning at a relatively young age. Don't set yourself up for failure. Don't make resolutions. In the words of some sports company out there, just do it. So, you might say, we sure talk about transformation a lot here. You might say that we talk about change and becoming. And why do you think that we do that so much? Why do we talk about transformation?
Don't want to stay the way we are.
Don't want to stay the same. But aren't you fine just the way you are? I'm not. Wow. No, I have a long ways to go. Change. So imagine this. Imagine you had a house of the future. Do you remember those? I remember as a child watching cartoons and the house of the future. It cleans for you, it cooks for you, it walks the dog for you. It just, if you happen to drop some food on the floor, something comes running out of there and sweeps it up and then runs away. Self-cleaning house to free you up for more time to play video games. The house of the future. And a lot of those things that that I remember seeing in those cartoons, they actually exist today. There's the Roomba, is that right? Anybody have a Roomba? I think my parents tried that for a little while. Kept getting lost. Maybe not, I don't remember exactly. Maybe the Roomba died. But there is no true house of the future because, while technology can help us with some things, you still have to do many things in your house, don't you? Can you imagine a self-painting house?
Come on.
Right? Yeah. Just push a button and whoop-a-chow. Whatever color you want. We were joking earlier about my beverage, which I won't point up right now, but how it changed color by setting it onto a red tablecloth. That if I could set it here and it would turn gold. Technology. See, our spiritual lives are just the same as our physical houses. How long does it take for a house to need repair?
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Depending on who's living.
You've got one of those too, huh?
Our house in Michigan was pretty much daily, weekly.
Right? So I had this car. It was a really, really neat car. It was a classic when I got it. And it seemed to be something, I'd close the door and like the rearview mirror would fall off. Or the window would break, so you had to like.
Did you have to crawl on the other side because the door didn't open?
Yeah, which was fine for me, but it wasn't so much for my mom, I suppose. Our houses are like that. After having lived in several homes that have been painted recently and then moved into them, it amazes me how quickly the inside of that paint needs to be touched up again. Sometimes the door frames need to be not just fixed, but they need to be what? Replaced. Cleaned. Yeah, definitely replaced. What's that? Oiled. Mm-hmm. And so, why do we think, or would we think, that our spiritual lives would be any different? All throughout the scripture, the body is referred to as a house. How's your house? And we're not talking about the physical body because that's decaying and dying since we were born. But your spiritual house, how is it looking? Need some repairs? Need some repainting? Maybe a door frame removed? A new door? And so we are in this process of continual renovation. It's in the moment that you stop, what happens? Yeah. What if you said, I have this house. It's got everything it needs. It's got 3-car garage. It's got front and a back door. Works pretty well. Roof's really good. What does it take to damage a roof? Good hailstorm, good windstorm. A tree falls.
A car.
Okay, it's happened. I've seen pictures. And likewise, our spiritual lives are like this. We have to be maintaining, not just maintaining, but continually improving. Otherwise, our roof may get leaky. What would be an example of a leaky roof in our spiritual lives?
The little sins that leak through.
Okay, the little sins that leak through. What else? What are some examples of a leaky spiritual roof?
Slothfulness.
Okay, slothfulness.
Finding more important things to do than spending time with God.
Okay, is that easy to do? Does it take effort to be with our God? A little bit of effort. We have to make the effort. If you turn over to the book of James, please. So all throughout the scriptures, and even the words of Messiah, he's teaching us and speaking to us, and he's telling us that we must be those that are not just content with staying the same, not being in the status quo, not measuring ourselves by the world around us. You know, I'm better than this person or that group or this or that. Don't measure yourself. The rule of measure, the yardstick that we measure ourselves with is Messiah. And when we put ourselves up to Messiah, how do you measure up? How do I measure up? Are we at the fullness of the stature of Messiah, or are we actually a mighty midget?
Or a centimeter.
We're here, but we imagine ourselves to be taller than, greater than we are. But if we would only look with honest view into our hearts and our lives, we would see that we still have some room to grow. Amen. James chapter 1 and verse 2. My brothers and sisters, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. Oh man, he just lost me right there. That's not selling me right now with what I'm used to being bombarded with by this world, right? Count it all joy when you're beset by trials? No, we're bombarded with what? Through the various mediums. Live better. Live comfortable. No, this is what you need to be happy. This is what a perfect person looks like. They're beautiful. They've got lots of money. They have everything they need. And they do this and they do that and they speak like this. But the apostle says, count it all joy. Sounds a little bit countercultural to me. Knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. Anybody need patience? Trials. How do they teach us patience? What do they do?
With patience.
With patience. Okay. How do trials produce patience in us?
By enduring.
Okay. Enduring the trials. Do they always produce patience in us? No, because we don't allow it. Because we think or struggle in ways that are not actually according to God's ways. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may become perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Again, the word perfect is better translated mature, to the stature of the fullness of Messiah. Perfect in this life, meaning that we will never make a mistake, that we will never sin. It's possible, but unlikely for most of us. It's unlikely for me. And yet, if we will sin, should we stop the struggle? Should we just give up and say it's hopeless? Many have. Many have been shipwrecked on whatever the trial was because they did not hold to the words, hold fast to the one who says, I am with you always. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives all to all greatly and without reproach, and it will be given to him. Okay, so he says, ask for wisdom. Have we asked for wisdom? We should ask for that every day. Not because we were wise yesterday. Did you say something smart and clever a couple weeks ago? Well, I did it 2 weeks ago. But now, in the moment where we need wisdom, we should be asking for this wisdom. because he says, I will give it to you. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like the wave of a sea, driven and tossed by the wind. When does the sea stop moving? What's that? I'll let you know. Yeah, it never stops moving. There's always constant movement. A lake, maybe a little bit there's still movement. A pond, it's possible, even for a split second, for a pond to remain still. It looks like glass. But if we do not trusting in God, we are found like the sea, which is constantly in motion. There's always waves in the sea. In verse 7, for let that person suppose that they will not receive anything from the Lord, for he is a double-minded and unstable in all his ways. So we see that there is this, I guess you could say, to be double-minded. What does it mean to be double-minded? Okay, undecided? Conflicted? That's a good way of saying it, yes, well said. Conflicted. And if we're honest and truthful, we all find ourselves in this place. But should we accept it? Shall we say that's the dreaded words, which if you ever hear yourself say it, cry out and say, God have mercy on me. It's just the way I am. And you've spoken truly. If I say it, I have spoken truly. Because if that's the way we are, then that's the way we will stay. But we're in this process. We're in the womb being formed into the likeness of what we can become. We're not there yet. We're like the little fetus that's growing and growing and growing. It doesn't look like the final product when it's so small, does it? It looks really strange. It bears a resemblance to the fullness of what a child will be, but it's not there yet. And likewise, we are, as spiritual children, we are like this. You can hold your place there, and if you turn over to the book of Proverbs. We all have an opportunity every day to interact with other people. And we have a variety of ways of doing this, don't we? Oftentimes, our words are kind towards other people, and many times they're unkind, are they not? Proverbs chapter 15. And the preacher speaks to us with wise words. He says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise uses knowledge rightly, but the mouth of fools pour forth foolishness. A soft answer turns away wrath. That sounds so wise and so beautiful and so common sense. But what do we oftentimes do when we're in the midst of a discussion? We raise our voice, we wrap it up, or you ramp it up, yes. And we say a word that is not soft or kind or gentle. And we are like throwing gasoline onto a fire. Have you ever done, just for fun, when you have the barbecue and you have the lighter fluid, and from like a safe distance away, you don't do this. You squirt it. I know how his mind works. You squirt it, and the squirt kind of like goes there, and it hits and flames, and then the flame kind of comes back on the what you squeeze, and thankfully it doesn't hit you because it's like enough time is elapsed. Our words ignite, and then it comes back on us, and it inflames. Our mouths, we have a great gift with this vessel of our mouths, of the tongue. What does the apostle write later? That the tongue is like what?
A sword.
Okay, a sword, a spark? Yeah. We have this ability to create or destroy, do we not? How was everything created? Did God just go, ka-chow? No, he spoke. He utilized the creative value of sound to bring about. It also says in the scriptures that when he also speaks and mountains tumble. that there is also things that are destroyed. And so the gift that we've been given is in emulation of our Father that can both create and as well as destroy. He says continually in verse 3, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. Do we really believe that? That God is everywhere present and fills all things? We say that with our minds and sometimes with our mouths. But I do not act like that at all times. Because if I did, realizing that, well, truly, the angels are about us, but God is present. And he sees and he hears everything that I do, above all, and then he also hears and sees everything that I think within my mind and my heart. We have to start someplace. We have to start with that which we can change. And we all have the ability to utilize this tool with wisdom. It says, a wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. A wholesome tongue is like a tree of life. What does a tree do? It grows, and again, just for the sake of argument, a fruit tree does what? It produces fruit. If you want apples, you don't plant an orange tree. If you happen to get oranges from the apple tree, it's probably been genetically modified. But you get what is planted. If we plant with our voice, our lips, our words, we're planting seeds in our lives, in our families' lives, in our coworkers. We're planting seeds in these places. And what else does the apostle say to do with our mouths? He says, and he gives us example of animals, particularly a horse or a mule. How do you control those things? Bridle. And even above the bridle, what do you have to do? The bit is attached to. For those that are unfamiliar with horses, the bridle is attached to the bit. And does the bit go between the ears of the animal? No, it goes into the mouth of the animal. If you've ever had braces, you kind of have an understanding of a little bit what it's like to have metal in your mouth. But if you've ever, I don't even know what to use as an example. Metal doesn't taste good, does it? It's why I don't personally enjoy drinking out of metal cups. It tastes metallic. A bit controls the animal so that it will be directed to where it can go. And when we struggle against God, many times, he has to put, metaphorically, a bit into our mouth to guide us. The animal would probably prefer to not have the bit in its mouth because it's hard to just exist with this bit. And likewise, the discipline many times that our Father uses for us is like that bit. It doesn't taste very good, and it kind of hurts sometimes. But it's for the good of us. And so we see that the words that we speak are extremely important. They're very valuable. It says in verse 5, a fool despises his father's instruction, but he who receives correction is prudent. In the house of the righteous there is much treasure, but the revenue of the wicked is trouble. What's revenue? Okay, wages that are received. So it says that in the house of the righteous, there's treasure. There's great things, beautiful things. But the wicked receive the wages of their foolishness, which is trouble. The struggles of this life. Does the Bible say that everyone will receive payment for their actions, of which words are found in it? Is it a true statement that everyone will be rewarded for their actions? It does. So the reward of the righteous is what? Ultimately we could say, is eternal life. And the wages that are the reward of the wicked is eternal death, which is terrifying. And so we see that what our actions bear fruit. We are a fruit tree. And if we desire to produce apples, then we cannot produce walnuts. Because they aren't the same thing. And so if we say that we desire righteousness, then we have to be planting the seeds in order to produce righteousness. What is a very valuable gift that we can exercise sometimes with this gift of our tongues?
Closing it.
Okay, keeping our mouths closed.
Think twice, speak once.
What's that?
Think twice, speak once.
Okay, thinking twice, speaking once, measuring our words, being those that measure our words. Will these hurt or heal? Social media has done a terrible disservice. While it's been valuable in some ways, has been a terrible disservice because it offers an opportunity for people to think 0 times and say very much. I am so glad that some of my foolish thoughts and words are not captured anywhere for eternity, relatively speaking, to be dredged back up again, as this is done. Everybody seems to be in a free flow consciousness of putting everything out there into this forum. The scripture says that even a fool is thought to be wise. If what? If he's silent. Silence is one of the greatest gifts that we can use with as an accompaniment to our words that we allow to come from our mouths. Have you ever said something and as you say it, you regret it immediately? When you wish you could like clamp down in the middle of it so you don't have to, but you've already said it. God have mercy on me, a sinner. He is encouraging us that the abundance of the heart is what? Is revealed through our words. Out of this place comes that which we think and we believe. And so we should be those that are utilizing the wisdom more and more of silence. One of the fathers said, I have never regretted not speaking, but I have often spoken with much regret. It was this wisdom that he recognized.
There's an old saying, better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and prove it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You see, comedy of our times is a constant free flow of abuse and attack. And we can become conditioned to think that that's amusing. And then we begin to emulate everything that we have taken into us. The elder says, compel yourselves in silence, the mother of all godly virtues. Keep silent and say the prayer of Messiah. For when someone speaks, how is he able to escape idle talk, from which comes in every evil word, and weighs the soul down by the responsibility for it? The soul is weighed down by the responsibility for our words. What does Messiah say to us about words? Every word that is spoken is what? Will be called to mind and will be held accountable for it. God have mercy on me, a sinner. If we truly believe that, how much more would we guard our words that we allow? You see, we can start with the gate of our mouths, and then we have to graduate and begin with where it all begins, which is where? In our mind and our heart. And so this is a process of which we participate in, amen? Can we accomplish this simply through our own human efforts? No, I mean, humanity has shown this, that without God, there is no true change. We can sort of manage our outward behavior, and we can look good and perhaps sound wise because we have spoken less and become more quiet. But what do we? I simply lost my train of thought. But we have to manage what's also on the inside. What did Messiah say about the Pharisees of that moment? He called them whitewashed tombs. Why did he call them that?
Because they were clean on the outside and dirty on the inside.
Okay, a whitewashed tomb is a thing that looks pretty good. I mean, it looks pristine. It looks so much better than splatters of dirt and schmutz. But every tomb, no matter how nice it looks on the outside, is a vessel of what? Death and dead things. And so he says, don't be like them. Don't look good on the outside and sound righteous on the outside. This is where sometimes we begin with noticing our words. And we notice them, we repent of them, and then we begin to change how we communicate. But ultimately, the true change has to happen within us. Otherwise, it'll simply be an exercise of watching our words. We are held accountable as well for what we think and what we hold to within our hearts. Sin begins where? Yeah, in the mind. It begins from within. It doesn't start out here and then somehow jump around and jump inside. Sin begins within us. We see that the continual, this whole chapter of Proverbs 15 is so valuable, which truly all of the Proverbs are. I would encourage you at a later point, perhaps today, perhaps this week, to read over the whole chapter of this. In verse 12, a scoffer does not love one who corrects him, nor will he go to the wise. So a scoffer is somebody that what? Okay, a mocker. Let's see. You can mock simply with actions, right? Mocking can be conveyed through body language, but how oftentimes is mockery conveyed? Through words. And this, again, is the comedy of our times. And so we have to be those that are mindful of how do we communicate? How do we even begin to communicate about people that we don't like very much, or we think we don't like? I've had to take incredible stock in myself when it comes to referring to certain classes of people within our society. I'll just say politicians. Because no matter if you disagree with them or not, they're still God's creation. There is a way to disagree without being mockers. God has told us through the apostle to be respectful, at least of the office that person holds. But we have to be those that apply that same principle to everybody. When you are attacked by somebody, what's the easiest thing to do? Okay, to retaliate. If you don't retaliate in words, you're certainly doing what within inside?
Getting angry.
Okay, getting angry. We think unkind things about them. Is it okay? I mean, can we justify ourselves?
Nope.
But I do justify myself. God have mercy on me, a sinner. No, we have to be those that take every thought captive. And in the moment that we begin, perhaps we have to remove ourselves, but we begin, as we experience persecution from people, our first inclination, muscle memory, right? How we train is how we respond. Our first thought, rather than they attacked me, how should we begin to see others? Okay, they're hurting.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah, hurt people. We should begin to see them as God sees them, even people that we don't like. We begin to see them, and our first thought, instead of feeling that pain of the arrow striking us, is we begin to cry out for them, because they're broken, just like you and me. And instead of wishing evil things upon them, we begin to wish God's mercy upon them. Again, mercy isn't letting people off the hook. We have given responsibility of this over to God and ask for his mercy upon them. And mercy isn't letting people off the hook. It's God's job to judge. It's God's job to correct. And we begin to be those that are freer, and we have less burdens on us. we begin to free ourselves through applying the wisdom that he's given to us. If silence is not kept, it is not a good sign for the future of the soul. As long as whatever it gathers, it scatters. For a person who is free with his mouth is unstable in everything. Wow. Our words and our actions are indicators of eternity. Is that true? I mean, will we be rewarded for our good and rewarded for the evil? But how can we say that? What does that say for us? Oh, God, I can't do this. I'm so broken. Are we beyond repair? Are we beyond hope? If we believe we're beyond hope, then we don't believe that God is truly God. But we don't believe that he is truthful to what he has said to us. In essence, we make God a liar if we do not believe that we can be changed. We can be transformed. James, back to James. In verse 12, James chapter 1 and verse 12. Gosh, here he goes again. Blessed is the man or the woman who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life for which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Blessed is the person who endures. Again, it's not selling me on this whole, life is comfortable thing. It's saying that I have to be somebody who endures, who perseveres. I can see why this isn't really utilized as a marketing technique in our world today, because it's not comfortable. Blessed is the person who endures, for he will receive a crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. And we know that the process of sin begins within. In verse 19, so then, my beloved brothers and sisters, let every man or woman be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. I think I am going to type this out and print it and put it in my car and put it right there so I can see it and read it each day. The wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. As a reminder to myself, because I will not be changed unless I'm mindful of God. Do we believe that God is in our everyday lives? Is God in the details of our lives? Does how we live and how we think and how we operate, is to be righteous is only within these walls? Or just within the walls of our house, and then we get out of the house and we're like, woohoo! Now I can be free. Or is it every detail of our lives? Every aspect, every interaction. A trip to the grocery store can be a holy thing. Why?
Because you could be getting stuff to help someone.
Okay. We could be those that are getting things to be able to give to others. Amen. What else? How could a mundane thing like that be a holy thing?
Mission field.
Okay. Bearing witness to the truth, not always speaking the name, but bearing witness to the truth happens many times in what? Our actions, how we interact with people. Do we get impatient whenever there's a big long line at the store? Yes, guilty. But what could that actually be for us if we were mindful of it? Opportunities? Opportunities to endure, yes. But opportunities to speak to other people that we may never, ever see again or speak to, or maybe wouldn't consider speaking to. And there they are, right there. God brought them right there to you and me. And they just happen to be in front of us or behind us in the line. Holy actions are not just done in worship. worship is loving God, and worship is loving people. Amen? He says that he believes, or God says this so much, it's so important that he says, if you don't love people, that you don't love me. God have mercy on me, a sinner. And so our expressions many times come through our words. We mutter under our breaths. We should be those that, again, are mindful of what is coming out of us. Better to fall from a mountain than to fall by the tongue. For the tongue does the greatest evil to men and women. What does Messiah say about us if we hurt one of the little ones, he says? He gives the words. Okay. All right, a millstone. Let's put that into perspective because of those perhaps that haven't been around a millstone recently. I can't say I've actually maybe been around one. A millstone is a very large, round, probably thick, depending on however thick it is, and it's utilized to do what? To crush grain. Okay, again, for the sake of argument, assume there is like a hole in the middle of this, because as you're moving the millstone, and that thing is taken, set next to the sea at a very deep point, or maybe on a boat, and that rope is tied around the millstone and tied around your neck. And what happens to you in the millstone? You sink with the fishes. And Messiah says to hurt others, particularly the little ones, those that are deemed to be precious in God's sight. It'd be better if we were swimming with the fishes than to injure others. God have mercy on me, a sinner. When we keep silent, we have the time for interior prayer, which brings full assurance, and for luminous thoughts, which fill the understanding of the heart with light. Silence is the fastest path to virtue. When we think about contemplating God, what are some ways that we can do that? Seeing him in his creation. We see a beautiful sunrise or sunset. Sunrise, if you're a morning riser. Seeing him in his creation in perhaps your pets. It's a beautiful gift, a creation of God. We see him in the beauty of the stars. These are reminders, or are they just stuff? Is it just stuff out there? What are other ways to contemplate God?
In people.
Okay? Contemplating God in people.
And meditating how he dealt with people throughout history through Genesis through Revelation.
Okay, so seeing and how God has interacted through, we contemplate the words of the scriptures. What else? How can we contemplate God?
Just the fact that we are alive, that we exist, that the trillions of cells work in harmony to give us life.
Yeah,
That concept alone is inconceivable.
yeah. Yeah. We see that this is so many ways. If we're thinking about God, if we're speaking the words, good words, perhaps it's the prayer around Yeshua, have mercy on me, a sinner. What is it super hard for me to do while I have my mind filled with God and him upon my lips? What is it hard for me to do? To curse the people around me. It's not impossible. I've done it in between breaths, driving on the road. God have mercy on me, a sinner. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Person cuts in front of me. Idiot. God have mercy on me, a sinner. Return to the prayer. You fall, you rise again. You make a mistake, you hurt somebody. Repent. Go to them and ask forgiveness. Repair what you can. The only thing that we take from this life is relationship with other people. That can't take gold. We can't take that whatever that we value. We can only take a relationship, which God willing, we will find them in heaven. They will find us. It's all we have. It's that important to God. He says, people are everything. He said that they're everything. And we say, well, God is everything. Yes, but people are everything because that's how we show love to our Father. For many words precedes the destruction of the virtues, the destroying of silence and other dishonorable passions. For he who is silent worries the demons, because they do not see the secrets of the heart among those who are perfect and mature, when they do not speak with the lips. But he who loves talking and talking much will not escape sin. If one were to place on one side the scale of all the works of the sinful life and on the other side of silence, we will find that silence outweighs them. And so we find that this gift of watching our words becomes a great value to us. The Father said, I've never regretted being silent, but I have oftentimes regretted speaking. So we say, but I don't think before I speak, and oftentimes words just tumble out of my mouth. What is an exercise that we can apply to ourselves if we think before we speak, or we speak before we think? How can we change that?
Try pausing for just 1 second.
Okay. All right.
Not only pausing for 1 second, but also to contemplate what the consequences will be of what we're about to say or do.
Okay. Okay.
This is an abundance of the heart, the mouth speaking.
Yeah.
So if we spend a lot of time on putting the word of God in our heart, it will push out that within our heart that is not pleasing to God.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't have to spend as much time thinking about what not to say, because you will be filled mostly with the things that are right to say.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Doing the process of cleansing the inner cup, the inner part of the cup. Have you ever, I'll just say, lost a coffee cup and then you find it at some point? If you drink creamer in your coffee, what oftentimes do you find in the bottom of that coffee cup?
Residue.
Gentle term. We'll go with schmutz. How do you clear the schmutz out of the cup, out of the vessel? Okay, so you wash it out. You generally will probably have to use something like what? Cold water? Probably hot or warm water and soap as a cleansing agent. What if you just rinse that vessel out with just hot water?
Doesn't always break down.
Okay, doesn't always break down. And while you may have gotten the visible schmutz, there's those invisible microscopic thingies called germs that still linger. And so soap is the cleansing agent which participates with. See, the hot water is the zeal of our lives for God. And the soap, the cleansing agent, is the Spirit of God. That together, it works to cleanse the inside of our hearts, of this vessel. He says that we are vessels. Later, the apostle writes that a well doesn't produce salt water and fresh water, does it? If you go to your well, and I don't know if you've ever had a well, probably many of you have, and you go to the well and you begin pumping it, assuming that's what you did. I remember wells like that. Or if it was you were advanced and you had it attached to your house, and you open the faucet, what do you expect to come out of that? Into your brown water? Green water? Salt water? No, you expect pure water to come out. And so, likewise, our hearts and our lives are this well. What's in my well? That makes me think of what's in my wallet. But we'll go with what's in my well. What do I have to draw from to be able to give to others? Is it salt water? Salt water is good for some things. It's not good for a whole lot of other things. If you tried to survive on drinking on salt water, what would happen? Just die from choking it down, probably, but yeah. And so what's in our well? God has surrounded the tongue with a double wall, a barrier of teeth and a fence of the lips. in order that it may not easily and heedlessly utter words that it should not speak. Keep it curbed within your mouth. Suppose it does not stand for this treatment, punish it with the teeth, just as you were giving the body over to the executioner to be bitten. For it is better to be bitten now than when it sins, whereafter, when it departs seeking a drop of water, it will be deprived of that consolation. Her words matter. They demonstrate who we are. And so today, may we be those that seek to be mindful of our words. May I be mindful of mine, so that I can truly become and be transformed into the likeness of Messiah. When he was being persecuted unto death, did he curse those? He spoke out of the abundance of his heart, didn't he? And what did he say to those that were killing him? Forgive them. Forgive them. Where he could have called down fire, he had the power. He could have called the legions of angels, which were crouched in every corner around him, waiting to act if he gave the word. But he didn't wish hateful things upon them. Of course, he is pure and beautiful and perfect. And he knows that you and I are not, but that we can become like that. So may we strive to be perfect and mature in this life. Amen. Abba, we pray that you will plant these seeds of which my poor mouth has spoken, Abba, that you would water them with the pure water of your Spirit, Lord, and nurture each of us to be those that demonstrate the truth of your words and of your actions that you've shown us. And we may be counted as those that are righteous and found in the company of heaven forever and ever. Amen. Amen.